Hello, everyone, and welcome to Booming Encore's Learning Bites. My name is Susan Williams, and I'm the founder of Booming Encore. The COVID-19 pandemic is causing us to live in ways we never thought before. Specifically, self-isolation is like the first time many of us are spending extended time together with our spouses or partners, as well as having, our adolescents and young adults at home from school. And this type of situation could be a strain for any relationship. Today, I'm happy to be joined again by Dr. Sean Hayes. Dr. Hayes is a clinical psychologist and co-founder of Coheasio. Last time Dr. Hayes and I met, we talked about managing stress and anxiety during the COVID-19. And today we'll actually be discussing self-isolation and how to manage relationships during this time, which, who knows, may be contributing some of this stress and anxiety we may be experiencing. So welcome back, Dr. Hayes. Great to have you.
Thank you for asking me back. Great to be back.
So Dr. Hayes, in this new environment of self-isolation, what advice would you give to people on how to best manage their own response to stress in these circumstances?
Well, I think there's three sort of buckets we want to think of. There's things we want to do to address our emotions, things we want to do to address our behaviors or actions, and things we want to do as a collective with our spouse, with our teens. But I think the first most important note is this is not normal life. So maybe we all need to just kind of keep a deep breath and lower the bar of our expectations a little bit. I think there was a great phrase I read the other day: if all we lose is our temper in this difficult time, that's a pretty good accomplishment. Mm-hmm. So I think to give ourselves some space, lower the bar from what we need to do. We are in a bit of fight or flight mode, so we're going to see more tension. We're going to be more irritable, and that's okay. I think one thing we can do emotionally is maybe go out of our way to make sure that we ask the children, we ask our spouses to compliment each other each day. Find just something small to say to your partner that you appreciate, that you thank, and have your children do the same thing. So really try and find that one positive thing that you can do with each other. I think the need to laugh, in some cases, depending on the humor, a little dark humor is not a bad thing. I was talking to my colleague who said that they've been setting together the plans they want to do post-pandemic, which I think is a great thing. Sit with your kids. What would you like to do? What would your spouse like to do? And she announced to her partner, I can't wait to take a vacation without you. And they laughed hysterically. And I think that's important, that humor.
And so what advice would you give to how maybe to structure this, so that, within the household, everybody kind of knows how best to manage, themselves, and also how best to respond to each other?
I think that's going to be probably the biggest challenge none of us anticipated, because there is going to be potentially a conflict over resources, literally internet access for downloading, video streaming, school, homework, whatever, resources, laptops, computers, a space where you need to be if you're going to take a teleconference or a video conference, or your teen is on something for school. So I think, first of all, we actually do need to sit together and literally put together an agenda with our house, with everybody, including the children. When do you need to be online? What type of space do you need? When do you, spouse, do you have a teleconference? The other key part of that is not assuming that my responsibilities come first. Because just because I have a teleconference doesn't mean it's more important than yours. So we have to discuss together now, because our work kind of responsibilities may be one against each other, and recognize that I might have to give some space to you. Your teleconference might be critical. I might have to tell my boss I have to hold off. So I do think there's a lot of that co-planning that we probably didn't have to do before. Recognizing those space limitations and recognizing a closed door has meaning in this context, and to respect that, even for kids. I think right now they need to know, we all need to know, there is a space that's a time away space. It's kind of not a time out, a time away, like a chillax space. And I think that's something also we can say to our kids. We can say, okay, right now I need to be not near you. And they should be able to say that as well. So I think we do need to step back and really think of our environment, think of who's priority and when, and how to support that for each other.
Yeah, we implemented something here called respect the door. So whenever the door was closed, it was a matter of, trying to respect it. Now that's great if you've got a little bit of extra space, but what happens when you're in sort of a cramped space and you've got actually sharing that space? Is there some suggestions you've got there?
Yeah, it obviously gets much harder when you're on top of each other. But I think that's where you also need to look at additional things like our respective volumes. Create a little signal for turn it down in a way that's not an insult. Respective volumes on television, or excuse me, on teleconference, we all have to think through how and when to do that. Televisions, radios. I think it is a matter of just sort of stepping back and recognizing that there isn't that space. And when you need that to get away, to allow that person to go. That may be just to the balcony. If
Yeah.
you don't have a garden, it might be just go standing on the balcony for 5 minutes, standing near a window. I mean, right now it's spring in Canada. It's not freezing. Get some air, get some sunlight. Even if you're leaning out the window from each other, get some air.
Absolutely. And what are some of those early signs that may be indicators that there's a problem? It may not be quite so obvious as, screaming at each other, for instance.
Well, I think a lot of them are kind of the obvious ones. They're the ones that our grandmothers taught us, but we now need to reinforce. Obviously, it's sort of eating well. This is the time where it's going to be a tendency to over-caffeinate ourselves, eat too much junk food, and then we're all going to crash, and that's not going to be good. So eating well, exercising together, either in the house or on the balcony or in a garden if you have access to a garden, or even a rooftop. If it's a rooftop you can access that you can exercise without others, get some sun. This is probably the first time in your life we can all say we can sleep. And we can sleep. So try and put in some really good sleep time. Dim the lights for 2-3 hours before bedtime. Read something fictional and upfront. Do not read the news. Do not open the newscast at 11 o'clock because that will keep you up. Yeah. This is a time, all those things you wanted to do, to meditate, to relax, take a bath, put on lotion. I think things we do need to watch about is anything that seems excessive. So excessive eating, comfort eating, too much junk food. Excessive sleeping. If you find you're sleeping, considerably more than you normally need, that could be a sign of depression. Also, I'm very conscious, particularly in younger kids or teenagers, but some adults, of compulsive worrying. If they're constantly checking the news, constantly coming back with this, what about this, what is, we need to address that, normalize their feelings, but at the same time, help them structure that, realize they're safe and they're protected, and then that's not going to get them anywhere because that's a good sign. And the last thing I always check how your bedroom and how your kitchen look. That starts to go into disarray, there's a sign you're letting your inside go into disarray.
Okay, good points. Now, what about television and video games? What's your thoughts on those?
2 weeks ago, I loved all the recommendations coming out from schools, and all the great teachers were saying, structure the day, school classroom starts at 8 a.m. and you work till 5. In the real world, you know what? If you want to take 2 hours with your kids and watch Frozen 2, as much as you don't want to see it again, do it in the afternoon. You can always work that evening. So I think right now, it's not a bad thing if our kids are maybe being babysat a little bit by the television, as long as it's appropriate. I wouldn't have them exposed to any of the news channels right now, depending on their age and their capability. But I do think it's okay. I think this is the great time to catch up on the classic films we always wanted to watch with our kids, but kind of make it a child, make it interactive, make it fun, make it a movie that meant a lot to you as a kid and explain it to them. Not all day, but it doesn't necessarily have to be 9 to 5, post 9 to 5 either.
Right. That's great suggestions. Also, I think implementing the family dinner might be a good thing too. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, here's our time. Here's our time to sit, put down the phones because we've been on them all day, put down the TV. You can make it as structured as you want. You can do these virtual dinners, which are kind of fun now. Everybody's getting onto FaceTime with virtual dinners. Get a chance to reconnect with your friends, talk about your day, It's a good chance also to identify if there are some behaviors in each other you're worried, to your spouse, if they seem to be more irritable than usual. That's the time to really compliment them. That's the time to say, look, I know you're doing the best you can do, and this isn't easy, and you'd like to get out, and you miss whatever you're doing. So how can we help there? So I think those dinner and over food tends to bring us down anyway. It calms us. So eating is a great time to have those discussions.
Yeah, as long as you're not eating too much and not the wrong foods.
Yeah, no sharp knives.
Yeah.
Put away move the sharp knives. Okay, now we can talk. Chopsticks, maybe.
Is there any other advice or suggestions that you have?
I think a lot of it is the stuff we all know, but we've kind of let forgotten about. And maybe this is our chance to get back to it. Eat, exercise, sleep. I think the other thing I'm thinking that's fun is this is the time to have those discussions of the things you want to do. This is not going to go on forever. It is going to be different. But what about those projects you never got a chance to do? Plan that trip. Plan that family photo album you've been meaning to go through with the kids. Plan those collages. Make those fun things, at least to give everybody something to look at beyond what's happening now. We all have them. We all have that to-do list. See if you can make that part of a family activity while this is going on. And maybe we'll even walk away with this with a positive memory or two.
Yeah, that, patience and compromise, I think.
And a little bit of humor. A little bit of humor.
And some humor, for sure, some humor. Well, thanks so much for your time, Dr. Hayes. I really appreciate it.
Good. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
And for everyone out there, I hope this information helps you navigate through some of these uncharted waters and gives you the opportunity to actually make your relationship stronger. Stay safe, everyone. Bye for now.
Stay safe.